The community center had been done up like a five-star hotel, chandeliers glinting, waiters weaving through clusters of people with silver trays, the hum of polite laughter echoing off polished marble floors. We were in the wealthier part of Dallas, and the money in the room made that clear. My sister Rosalind knew how to throw a party. She'd always had a talent for appearances. I arrived with Celeste and Emery at my side, my wife in a sleek navy dress, and our daughter tugging awkwardly at the waistline of hers. Emery hated events like this. She was 17, introverted, book-smart, and still trying to figure herself out in a world that demanded confidence and charm on demand. I squeezed her hand gently, offering reassurance I wasn't sure I had myself. Rosalind spotted us from across the room. She didn't wave. She turned back to her conversation with the mayor's wife and nodded once. I hadn't seen her in nearly a year. There'd been no falling out, no single blow-up. Just a quiet, mutual avoidance that stretched too long. But we were here for a cause, not for family therapy. "Stay close," I murmured to Emery. "Let's just get through tonight." The lights shimmered off wine glasses. Music floated in softly from the jazz trio near the far wall. Rosalind, dressed like she'd stepped off the cover of some high society magazine, finally approached us, flanked by Vernon, her husband. He gave me a tight-lipped nod. Rosalind offered 2 cheek kisses like we were European royalty. "I'm surprised you made it," she said, sipping her champagne. "I wasn't sure school teachers got nights off these days." Celeste tensed beside me. I smiled, a brittle one. "Still have a few personal days left." "I see." She turned to Emery. "And this must be the little bookworm. My goodness, haven't you grown into something?" The way she said something made me wince. Emery looked down at her shoes. I forced a chuckle. "She's doing well." "All honors this year." "How lovely," Rosalind replied, already scanning the room. "Well, enjoy yourselves. Be sure to bid on something affordable." She drifted off, a cloud of perfume and passive aggression trailing behind her. The next half hour was a blur of pleasantries, small talk, and social landmines. People asked about Emery, what college she was considering, if she played sports. She gave short answers. Rosalind hovered like a queen bee, swooping in occasionally to offer unsolicited comments. "She's very natural, isn't she?" Or, "Some girls bloom late." I wanted to walk out, but this was for Emery. And I'd taught myself over years of silence how to stay composed, even when I was boiling inside. Then came the moment. They called for photos, family groups, siblings, generations. Rosalind waved us over for a shot in front of the donor wall. Vernon stood stiff beside her, his smile barely present. Emery stood slightly behind me, her nerves obvious. In the shuffle of getting into place, Emery brushed against Rosalind's dress. Just a small touch, barely noticeable. Rosalind turned sharply. "Watch it," she snapped. And then, without warning, she tossed the contents of her champagne glass across Emery's dress. Gasps echoed. A camera flash went off. One woman covered her mouth. Phones rose like mushrooms in a storm. "Maybe try not to stumble around like a baby deer in heels," Rosalind sneered, loud enough for a few of her sycophants to laugh. Emery's face crumbled. She turned and bolted. Celeste called after her and ran behind. I stood there, completely frozen, staring at the dampness soaking into my daughter's chest. The laughter, the cameras, the people pretending not to notice. My feet wouldn't move. My hands were fists. And then, from behind me, a voice. "We're done." I turned. Vernon. He wasn't looking at Rosalind, he was looking at me. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. Something in his eyes told me that whatever image of a perfect marriage he and Rosalind had been peddling was fractured, maybe even broken, and he wasn't standing by her anymore. She returned to her circle of friends like nothing happened. Laughed, sipped, smiled for a picture. I stood there, invisible, like I'd been so many times before. But Vernon saw it. Later, I found myself outside. Not sure how I'd ended up there. The air was cooler, the noise softer. Celeste was sitting on the curb, holding Emery, who was still crying, her shoulders shaking like she was trying not to break apart. I watched them for a moment, my wife stroking our daughter's back, whispering things I couldn't hear. I should have said something. I should have stopped it, but I didn't. Not this time. But the silence I'd mastered for so many years, that silence had cracked. This ends now, I muttered under my breath. I've stayed quiet for too long. The drive home was a tunnel of silence. No one said a word. Emery sat behind me, staring out the window like she was trying to disappear into the dark. Celeste's hands stayed folded tightly in her lap. The engine was the only thing that dared make noise. When we pulled into the driveway, Emery didn't wait for anyone. She opened the car door, rushed inside, and locked herself in her room. I heard her sobbing through the walls, that muffled kind of crying that somehow hits harder than screaming. I stood in the hallway for a moment, not knowing where to go. Celeste brushed past me, gave my shoulder a squeeze, and disappeared into our bedroom. She didn't say a word. I ended up in the kitchen, lights off, sitting at the table with a glass of water that I didn't touch. I kept checking my phone, waiting. Nothing. No call. No message. Not from Rosalind. Not from any of them. That was the first crack I felt. Not from what happened at the gala, but what didn't happen after. I gave it an hour. Then I started calling. One cousin, voicemail, another, straight to it. A third sent me a quick text back. Busy. What's up? What's up? I checked Instagram. Rosalind's friends had already posted pictures. One was captioned, "Elegant night for a great cause." In the photo, my daughter was just out of frame. Not by accident. Another post had dozens of comments. Gorgeous evening. Always so classy, Roz. Flawless event. No one mentioned the moment she threw a drink at my kid. It wasn't that they didn't know. It was that they didn't care. Or worse, they chose to act like it never happened. The silence wasn't empty. It was loud, intentional, coordinated. That's what broke something in me. I heard Celeste's footsteps. She walked into the kitchen in her robe, barefoot, arms folded. "You're not sleeping?" she asked quietly. I shook my head. "Can't." She pulled out a chair and sat across from me. Her voice was calm, but there was something firm in it, like she'd been thinking for hours. "She needs us to say something," she said. "I know." "No, you don't. Not really, because you're still hoping this will all just blow over, that if you let it lie, they'll eventually come around. And I'm telling you, that's not going to happen." I looked away, but she didn't let me off easy. "She was bullied at school last year. You remember that? I thought, she didn't tell you everything. I found her crying in the bathroom because some girl called her whale in gym class. You know what she said to me that night? She said, 'It's okay, Mom. Some people are just mean. That's what we've taught her, how to take it.'" I swallowed hard. "And then tonight, your sister threw a drink at her, laughed at her, made her feel small in front of a room full of people, and you froze." I dropped my head. I didn't know what to do. You never do, Talmadge. You always give people the benefit of the doubt, even when they leave bruises. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The weight of her words was enough. "I'm not asking for revenge," she added, "but I am asking for a line, a boundary. If you won't speak up, she'll grow up thinking this is normal." After she went to bed, I sat there for a long time listening to the refrigerator hum. I thought about being 13. Game night at Rosalind's. She asked trivia questions, and when I got one wrong, on purpose to make her feel smart, she laughed and said, "You'd make a great janitor someday." Everyone laughed, even our mother. I smiled too. But later that night, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried into a towel so no one would hear, and I never told anyone. That night came back like a ghost. It hit me. Maybe this family has always used silence as a shield. Maybe we all learned early that harmony meant swallowing the pain. But if that's true, what did I just teach my daughter? That she should keep her head down, clean herself off, and pretend it didn't happen. Not this time. I got up, grabbed my phone, and walked back to the kitchen window. The house across the street had its porch light on. Nothing else moved. Then my phone buzzed. Vernon. "We should talk. Tomorrow." No one else. No explanation. No emoji. Just that. It wasn't like him to reach out. I hadn't had a real conversation with him in years. But I knew right away this wasn't about small talk. This was something deeper. Something about Rosalind. Or about all of it. I started typing. "What do you want to talk about?" But I didn't send it. Instead, I looked down the hall. Emery's door was still shut. Still quiet. I pictured her on the other side, curled up in a sweatshirt, wondering if any of us would say something. "I'll find out tomorrow," I whispered to myself. "No matter what it costs." The morning air felt heavy before we even left the driveway. Celeste sat in the passenger seat, her fingers tracing invisible lines on her coffee cup. Emery was quiet in the back, earbuds in but no music playing. I could tell. That kind of silence has its own pulse. Rosalind's house stood at the end of a winding road, bright white walls and a garden manicured within an inch of its life. Cars already lined both sides of the street. Mercedes, BMWs, the usual parade of vanity. The brunch was supposed to smooth things over, but something in my gut told me it wasn't about healing. It was about control. When we arrived, the laughter hit first. I saw faces I'd known since childhood. Cousins, old family friends, people who had seen me grow up. And yet, when I approached, all I got were polite nods. They greeted others with hugs and kisses on the cheek, but for me, it was as if I carried an invisible stain. Emery raised her hand slightly to wave at her cousins. They looked at her, smiled thinly, then turned back to their plates. I caught her hesitation, the way her fingers fell to her side like she'd been reminded of something unpleasant. That moment burned itself into me. So this is what being invisible feels like. I tried to shake it off, but the hum of chatter only made it worse. Rosalind stood in the middle of it all, her laughter the loudest, her gestures wide and charming. She'd always had a talent for pretending things were fine while setting the whole stage on fire. I walked over, careful with my tone. "Roz, can we talk about last night?" Her smile didn't falter. She turned, just not to me. "Oh, Helen, I've been dying to see your new house in the Hamptons," she said, looping her arm through another guest's. She brushed past me like I was a waiter clearing glasses. I stood there for a second too long before I felt Celeste's hand on my arm. "Not here," she whispered, barely moving her lips. "She's baiting you." I forced a thin smile, nodded, and walked away. I'd once trusted Rosalind, once believed she meant it when she called me baby brother. But standing there, ignored in a room full of family, I realized that whatever sibling bond we had, she'd burned it down years ago. The dining room buzzed with voices, laughter bouncing off the walls. I tried to focus on Emery, making sure she was comfortable. But then the whispers started to reach me. "I heard he doesn't donate anymore," one woman murmured. "Not since he left finance," another replied. Someone else added, "He still pays, but quietly." It was the kind of gossip that dressed itself up as politeness, the kind that made your skin crawl because everyone smiled while twisting the knife. Celeste caught my eye again. One look said everything. Don't give them the show they're hoping for. So I swallowed it, like always. Then came the real cut. Emery walked over to the kids' table, tray in hand, trying to find a seat. Only one cousin shifted slightly. Another whispered something, and a soft ripple of laughter followed. Emery stood frozen for half a second before she caught herself and smiled. Too wide, too polite. I felt the old ache of recognition. That was me, years ago, at this same house, pretending rejection didn't sting. I walked over, pulled out a chair at a different table. "You can sit here, sweetheart." "It's okay, Dad," she said gently, still standing. "I'm fine." Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I nodded, pretending to believe her, pretending I wasn't breaking inside. I stepped outside, needing air. The terrace overlooked the garden, the same one Rosalind used to play hide-and-seek in when we were kids. The laughter from inside carried through the glass. Then I saw Celeste. She was by the corner, speaking quietly with Oswin Gable, a longtime family friend and videographer. I watched as she slipped something into his hand, a small USB stick. Oswin nodded and walked off. Celeste turned, startled to see me there. "What was that?" I asked. "Evidence," she said simply. Oswin had footage from last night. I asked him to make a copy. For a moment I couldn't speak. She'd done what I hadn't dared to. "You think he caught it?" "He did. I saw it myself. People need to see who she really is." Her voice was steady, but there was fire under it. I nodded slowly. The pieces started to align. This wasn't just about standing up anymore, it was about truth. When I stepped back into the house, the noise dimmed again. Maybe it was my imagination, but it felt like everyone paused, just a beat, as I crossed the room. I stood near the center, feeling my pulse slow, my voice low but clear. "I just want to say something." Conversations faded. Heads turned. Rosalind froze mid-laugh. I'm still my daughter's father, I said, meeting her eyes. No matter what any of you whisper, that doesn't change. Not for you, not for anyone. The silence that followed was sharp. Rosalind's smile flickered. The guests looked between us like waiting for a cue. Emery's eyes met mine across the room, wide, uncertain, but proud. For the first time, I didn't flinch. I didn't owe anyone my quiet anymore. The sun hadn't fully cleared the trees when I pulled back into Rosalind's driveway. I'd barely slept, but I needed to collect Emery's jacket and the book she'd brought to the gala, both left behind in the swirl of last night's mess. Celeste offered to come, but I told her I'd handle it. I needed the silence. Or maybe I needed to see how far the rot had spread. The door opened before I could knock. A housekeeper I didn't recognize gave a brief nod and stepped aside. No warmth, no greeting, just routine. I walked past her into the hall, the air thick with the same tension I'd left behind. In the garden, Rosalind's voice floated on the breeze, soft, poised, punctuated by laughter that wasn't real. A few guests surrounded her, sipping tea like they hadn't witnessed a thing last night. I didn't stop. I kept my eyes on the stairs until I spotted Emery at the bottom, sitting on a bench, gripping a crumpled program in both hands. She looked up at me, then back down, not saying a word. I sat beside her. She didn't cry, didn't complain, just pressed the wet paper tighter like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. And I hated that she'd learned to do that, at her age. From behind us, soft voices carried on the wind. He always needed hand-holding, never quite stood on his own. That family's always been half in, half out. Then Rosalind, clear, confident. Some of us never outgrow class distinctions. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I'd heard enough over the years to recognize her tone when she was performing cruelty under the guise of wit. Celeste had come in through the back, quietly, and now stood behind me. She placed her hand on my shoulder. Nothing said, nothing needed, but it steadied me. I remembered the time Rosalind told our mother I'd never make it through college. He's more sensitive than smart, she'd said, sipping wine. That was decades ago, but it still burned. I stood, kissed Emery's forehead, and told her I'd be right back. Oswin's trailer was tucked near the service entrance. I knocked. He opened the door halfway, peered out, then let me in. No greetings, just motioned toward his screen. I've got it cued, he said. He pressed play. It wasn't just footage of the gala, it was everything. Rosalind backstage, rolling her eyes, laughing about charity cases, calling me our family's boomerang, the one who always came back broke. Waylon's always looking for applause he never earned, she'd said. Even now, thinking his daughter's embarrassment is my fault. I didn't blink, just watched. When the clip ended, Oswin looked at me. I didn't show this to anyone. Celeste asked me to hold it for you. What do you want for it? I asked. He raised an eyebrow. I'll back your next docuseries, all of it, full fund. You let me handle the timing of this. He nodded. Deal. I walked back across the estate, my chest tight, not with fear, but focus. The leverage had shifted. I wasn't cornered anymore. I had something they couldn't ignore. Back at the car, Celeste waited. I leaned against the hood. She studied me for a moment. Are we about to blow up the family name? She asked quietly. Not blow up, I said. But I'm not leaving it the way it is. She stepped closer. And what if Emery pays the price? The school gossip, the social media vultures? I'm doing this for her, I said, steady. Not for revenge. Celeste searched my face. You're scared, I nodded. She reached up, adjusted my collar like she used to before big meetings. Then be the man you want her to remember. That sat deep in me. As I turned to head toward the gate, a man in a blazer passed me, Rosalind's media handler. He gave me a smirk and said, Good to see you, Mr. Talm. I stopped, looked him dead in the eye. It's Talmadge, not Talman. Try not to forget it next time. He flushed. A few guests nearby paused mid-conversation. It wasn't loud, but it was enough. That felt good. I kept walking. Then I heard it. The old garden gate, metal hinges groaning slightly. I turned. Vernon. He stood there, half in shadow. His stare was sharp, unreadable. No nod, no smile, just that look. The morning sunlight hit the glass of Rosalind's solarium like it was daring me to enter. I'd asked to meet her, civilly, directly. She'd agreed, though the tone in her message made it clear she thought it was a waste of her time. I stood at the doorway, and there she was, legs crossed, scrolling through her phone like a queen, bored of her court. "Well," she said without looking up, "if this is about your daughter again, I really don't have the energy for another sentimental lecture." I kept my voice even. "It's about respect, Rosalind. What happened at the gala wasn't just unkind. It was cruel. Emery's a child." She exhaled, setting her phone down with exaggerated patience. "Waylon, if she can't handle a little attention, how's she ever going to survive the real world?" I stepped closer. "You embarrassed her in front of strangers. And you laughed." Her mouth twisted into that familiar smirk. "Oh, don't start dramatizing it." Kids bounce back. I let the silence stretch until even she felt its weight. Then I said quietly, "Mock her again, and I promise it won't end quietly next time." That made her laugh. "Don't make threats you can't back up." I held her gaze. "Try me." She blinked just once before turning back to her phone. "This conversation's over." I left before my hands did something I'd regret. Vernon caught me in the hallway, leaning against the banister like he'd been waiting. "I heard voices," he said softly. "I told her that night she went too far. But you know how she is." I studied him. "Then why are you still standing beside her?" He hesitated, looked down at his wedding ring and shrugged. "We all have to pick our battles. And your daughter-in-law humiliating a teenager isn't one of them?" I asked. He rubbed his neck, eyes darting away. "She didn't mean harm, Emery. She just overreacted." It hit me harder than I expected, his cowardice dressed as diplomacy. "You saw it happen," I said. "You heard the laughter." "I did," he whispered. "But saying something now would just make things worse." That phrase, the family motto, make things worse. It was the reason every wound had been left to fester for decades. I walked out before he could finish. At home, the quiet was heavier than usual. Emery had stopped coming down for breakfast. Her plate from last night still sat on the table, untouched. I knocked on her door. "Hey, kiddo, you want to go for a drive later? Maybe that bookstore you like?" No answer. Just the faint hum of her music behind the door. Celeste appeared in the hallway, her face tired. "She ate a granola bar this morning. That's something." "She's shutting down," I said. "I can feel her slipping." Celeste leaned against the wall. "She told me she doesn't trust adults anymore." That broke something in me. "I feel like I'm losing her twice," I said quietly. "First to them. Now to silence." Celeste walked over, rested her hand on my chest. "Then stop letting them define what family means. Build a new one. Here." That night, after Emery finally fell asleep, I opened my laptop. The annual family fundraiser was coming up. I started typing. "We will not be attending until there's accountability for what happened at the gala." Celeste came up behind me. "Are we burning the bridge or just not crossing it?" "There's no bridge," I said, "if they keep pretending it never collapsed." I stared at the words, fingers hovering over send. My chest tightened. Not fear, resolve. But still, my hand froze. The next morning, a small box arrived in the mail. Old handwriting across the front. My father's. It had been forwarded from an estate office in Arkansas. Inside was a yellowed envelope, brittle with time. "Son," it read, "speak when silence becomes a lie." I sat there, the paper trembling in my hand. My father had known. He'd lived this same pattern, silence masquerading as peace. I folded the letter carefully, slipped it into my wallet. Then I looked back at the laptop screen, the email still open, my cursor still blinking, waiting. I whispered, "Let them see the fire they started." And I pressed send. The email had been sitting in drafts long enough. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it again. It was short, clear. I said we wouldn't be attending the fundraiser. That until someone, anyone, acknowledged what was done to Emery, we were done pretending everything was fine. The first few replies trickled in over the next couple hours. One cousin sent a one-line message. "I understand." No signature. Another said, "We're thinking of you," followed by an immediate second message asking me not to forward their reply to anyone. Then silence. Until Rosalind chimed in. She replied to everyone, the whole family thread. She opened with, "It saddens me to see such instability broadcast as righteousness," and it only got worse from there. She called me volatile, said I'd always struggled with emotional regulation, claimed Celeste was enabling isolationist behavior, and made a vague reference to Emery not adjusting well socially. She included one sentence that twisted a years-old moment from when Emery had a panic attack at school into a supposed history of mental fragility. I read it aloud to Celeste. Her face turned red. "That woman is toxic," she said through her teeth. I turned to Emery. She was sitting on the couch, legs folded, expression blank. "Did you hear that?" I asked gently. She nodded once. "Do you want to talk?" She shook her head. That was all. Later that day, Celeste got a call from a friend on the neighborhood committee. "Did you know Rosalind's email got shared to the PTA's group chat?" she whispered. "It's all over now." I found Emery in her room, sitting at her desk with the lights off. She was wearing a hoodie and a baseball cap indoors. She wouldn't look at me. I sat on the bed. "You okay?" She finally spoke, her voice dull. "My friend Sarah said her mom saw that email. She asked if I'm unstable." I clenched my jaw. My daughter, reduced to rumors and poison passed around like it was coffee talk. Celeste sat beside me later that evening after Emery had closed herself off again. "It's not just about her reputation anymore," she said. "It's about how she sees herself." I called a friend of mine, Greg, a civil attorney. Told him I wanted to sue Rosalind for defamation for what she was doing to my kid. Greg listened, then said, "Waylon, you don't fight mud with more mud. You fight it with sunlight. Tell the truth. Loud, public, undeniable." I nodded. I knew what I had to do. I spent that night drafting a new email, this time to everyone, family, close friends, those who'd gotten a version of Rosalind's story. It wasn't emotional, it was facts, timeline, screenshots, clear, direct, unvarnished. I wrote, "Family is not a shield for cruelty. Silence is not kindness. This isn't about drama. This is about harm." I ended it with a date and time. "We'll host a conversation this weekend at our home. If you want to know what really happened, come, hear it from us." Celeste looked over my shoulder. "You sure about this?" "She'll twist it again," I said. "That's what manipulators do." "Then let her do it in front of everyone," I replied. That night, the phone rang. It was Vernon. His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. "I didn't know she'd go that far," he said. "Yeah, well," I answered. "She did. I just wanted to keep the peace." "You kept the peace for yourself," I said. "For me, you declared war." He went silent for a beat. Then, "She said if I didn't support her, she'd bring up something I did years ago, something I thought was over." "What is it?" I asked. "I'm not ready to say." "Then don't expect me to trust you." He sighed. "I won't stop you, Waylon. I promise that much." The next day, I didn't talk much. I just sorted files, organized everything I had, emails, texts, that clip from Oswin's footage. Every insult, every moment I stayed quiet in the name of family. That afternoon, Emery leaned in my office doorway. "Are we going to be okay?" I looked up from my notes. "Yeah, but it might hurt first." She nodded. Didn't cry, didn't smile, just nodded. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, held my shoulders square, practiced one line out loud. "You don't get to rewrite history anymore." I wasn't looking for more dirt. I already had enough to confront her with. But secrets, it seems, don't wait for your permission to surface. The message came through an anonymous email. No subject line. Just a link and the words, "She stole more than your voice." I clicked it. A PDF of Rosalind's Gala brochure opened. Right there on the opening page, centered in gold ink, was a logo. My logo. The one I sketched on a napkin 7 years ago. A compass enclosed by ivy. Emery had helped name it. For what guides us home. I'd only shown it to Rosalind once during a long lunch after Mom's funeral. She said it was beautiful, said I should protect it. She must have scanned it that night. I stared at the screen, fingers frozen. I felt gutted. Betrayal like that doesn't roar. It settles in, slow and cold, like water leaking through a ceiling until everything rots. I took screenshots, then called Oswin. I need backup. Send it, he said. I'll keep a copy off the cloud. While digging through old files, I noticed something else. I remembered donations I'd made years ago. Charity events, family fundraisers. Rosalind always headed. I pulled up old tax receipts. Then I checked the Gala's donation reports from last year. The names didn't match. The routing numbers led to a different account. I called Sam, a former client who worked at the bank. He owed me a favor. An hour later, he called back. Waylon, that account. It's not the family's nonprofit. It's a shell called Templeton Trust. Just one signatory. Who? Rosalind. She'd been funneling money under a fake charitable name, using my donations, my daughter's trust, like poker chips. I stared at the screen again. This time, the rage wasn't quiet. It burned. I pulled my records, dates, amounts, cross-referenced everything. Oswin helped organize it into a visual presentation. My logo on one side, the Gala version on the other. We clipped the backstage audio of Rosalind joking with staff. Well, what's family for if not for free labor and ideas? We plan to reveal everything at the next community fundraiser. Celeste helped write the closing statement. She told me, speak the truth, but end it with grace. Don't let her turn you into her. We scheduled the presentation for that Saturday. A small local paper would be there, covering the event. 3 days before the meeting, Rosalind must have caught wind. I got a thick envelope at my door, cease and desist. Her lawyer claimed I was defaming her, said the logo had been gifted and that she had proof. An hour later, her social media post dropped. I'm saddened by certain family members trying to damage a woman's work in the name of truth. I was given that design. I own the rights. And unlike some, I believe in letting the past stay where it belongs. She ended with a dig. Jealousy wears many hats. Some of them even come with old logos. That night, I got messages from family. Some confused, some defensive. One aunt said, I don't want to take sides, but you're making this worse. They didn't know the half of it. Then Vernon called. He didn't waste time. She's twisting it again. Then help me stop it. He paused. She said if I spoke up, she'd expose my debt. The money I borrowed when Dad was sick. I was young, stupid. And now? I'm not siding with her anymore, he said, but I can't publicly undo it either. So you'll just, what, stay quiet? I won't stop you. That's what I can give. It wasn't enough, but maybe it was something. The day of the fundraiser came. I didn't speak much that morning, just went through my slides, made sure the projector worked, triple-checked files. I printed the list of truths, bullet points, simple. Direct. When we arrived, Emery stayed by my side. Celeste handed me a copy of the speech, her handwriting on the back. Tell it like it is, but remember who you are. I stood at the front of the community hall, folks chatting, unaware of the storm coming. Oswin queued up the files. I stepped behind the lectern, cleared my throat. The lights flickered. The projector died. Then Rosalind's voice came over the mic, cool and controlled. I think we'll postpone this, for now. We pulled up early to the Gala, the sky still soft gray, Celeste and Emery beside me, delicate in her black dress, quiet strength in her posture. The venue was aglow. Chandeliers dripped crystals, a string quartet played, and camera crews buzzed at corners. I checked with the AV tech. Yes, the stream's live, backed up on 2 servers. I nodded, bracing myself. The room filled quickly. Rosalind took the stage in full command, poised, glowing, the crowd hanging on her every word. She thanked her creative team for the logo. That alone made my stomach twist. She praised Vernon as her rock in difficult times, and then tossed out a shade veiled as praise. Even dissent brings us closer, wouldn't you say? The crowd applauded. I forced a polite smile, felt my grip tighten around my wine glass. When it was my turn, they introduced me as Rosalind's brother. That phrasing stung. I stepped up, steadied myself with a slow breath. I thanked everyone for being there, spoke about charity, trust, and community. Then I slid into the heart of it. That logo on your programs, those timestamps, original drafts, it wasn't her creation. I showed side-by-side images, mine, then hers. I spoke of family betrayal, of creative theft, and asked, How could you claim credit for that which wasn't yours? A ripple went through the audience. Some shifted uncomfortably, others whispered. Rosalind's face paled. She whispered to the AV tech to cut my slides. For a moment the room plunged dark. Her panic was sharp. But then the backup feed came alive. The screens lit up. On the live stream, recorded snippets played. Rosalind backstage with staff, laughing and mocking Emery's appearance, belittling my efforts. Her voice, clear, unfiltered, echoed across the room. Look at her walk. I thought she'd at least learn to stand straight. Gasps followed like thunder. Cameras flashed. No one could pretend they hadn't heard. She tried to shrug it off. That's clearly edited. Vernon stood slowly, then left the stage, his silence louder than words. Guests murmured, some walked out, others approached her. She unleashed one last stab. You think you're better than me, Waylon? I met her eyes. No, but I never needed cruelty to feel worthy. She stormed off, reporters in tow. Emery stood by me, eyes steady. She reached out, hugged me in the quiet storm. No words, just connection. Someone caught it on camera, a moment of truth among the shards. Then a voice broke through. I know something about Rosalind, something she made all of us sign. 1 week after the gala, the dust still hadn't fully settled, but something in me had. Each morning, Emery and I walked the old trail behind the neighborhood. We didn't talk much. Sometimes, silence said more. The story had spread far beyond what I ever expected. National headlines, morning talk shows, think pieces about family betrayal and community trust. I never imagined we'd be the center of something like this. Vernon hadn't returned Rosalind's calls, at least that's what I heard. His silence spoke volumes. My inbox overflowed. Volunteers, past donors, strangers, some sharing their own stories, others just saying, thank you. One morning, Emery turned to me and said, I've been sleeping better. I feel like I can breathe, Dad. And I believed her. A few days later, I met the woman from the gala, Joan Kessler. We sat outside a quiet bakery. She didn't waste time. Here, she said, sliding a flash drive across the table along with a notarized envelope. Inside, audio clips. Internal memos, board emails, a paper trail Rosalind never thought anyone would keep. We all signed NDAs, Joan said, her voice steady. But some things deserve daylight, not silence. I handed the material to a lawyer I trusted. A day later, he called, his voice tight. Waylon, this isn't just evidence. It's a map. Fraud, coercion, intimidation. You've got the whole thing here. He encouraged a class action from volunteers. Said it was time to clean house. The next morning, Emery and I sat at that same corner booth in our old diner, the one 2 tables from where her mom used to sit. Coffee between us, I asked the question I'd been carrying for days. Do we move forward with it? Or let it go now that she's lost everything? Emery didn't look up at first, just stirred her cream. If it were just about us, she finally said, maybe. But what about the next kid she humiliates? That's when I knew. We weren't chasing vengeance. We were standing up for something. We decided, together, we'd go public with Joan's evidence. We held the press conference at the local library, modest but packed. Joan spoke first, calm, factual, then I stepped up. I didn't read a script, just spoke plainly about truth, family, and how power turns ugly when it doesn't have accountability. News crews ate it up. The gala that backfired trended within hours. Rosalind posted a public denial and threatened a lawsuit. But when our lawyer responded with the files, she went quiet. Her donors vanished. A new board formed. She wasn't on it. A few weeks passed. Emery got her acceptance letter, summer arts program in Portland. We packed her things slowly. She insisted on keeping the original drafts of the logo, the real ones. They're part of the story, she said. Before she boarded the train, she handed me a sketchbook. On the cover, Truth, inked. Inside, drawings of our journey, rough moments, quiet glances, hard lines, and soft colors. You did good, Dad, she whispered before stepping inside. The doors closed. I stood there longer than I needed to. That evening, I walked the path near the lake behind the house. The wind was calm. I thought of something I'd once heard. Justice isn't always loud, it's consistent. I said a quiet goodbye to that long chapter of silence, anger, waiting. I was done carrying it. My phone buzzed. A message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. "Hey, can we talk?" As I slid the phone into my pocket, my eyes caught the old family photo on the hallway shelf, one we'd walked past 1,000 times. But this time, I noticed something I'd never seen before.